What happens when late-night comedy collides with political drama? In this gripping story, we dive into the fiery feud between Donald Trump and Jimmy Kimmel over a joke aimed at Marjorie Taylor Greene. What started as a punchline on live TV spiraled into threats, lawsuits, and a free speech showdown. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Do you think comedians should have limits when joking about politicians? Let us know in the comments below. It all started with a single joke. Late-night host Jimmy Kimmel, known for his sharp wit and fearless humor, took aim at Marjorie Taylor Greene during his monologue. He called her Klan mom and joked about her controversial statements, suggesting she could use a Will Smith-style slap. The audience erupted in laughter, but not everyone found it funny. MTG, never one to back down, fired back on social media the next day. She accused Kimmel of inciting violence against her, and even went so far as to file a complaint with the Capitol Police. Kimmel, not one to let a joke die quietly, responded with his trademark sarcasm, tweeting, "Officer, I'd like to report a joke." What seemed like a typical late-night jab had now escalated into a public spectacle, drawing attention from both fans and critics. The story took an unexpected turn when Donald Trump entered the picture. Never one to ignore a chance to defend his allies or to reignite his feud with the media, Trump released a fiery statement on Truth Social. He called Kimmel a loser and demanded that ABC fire him immediately. The internet exploded. Memes, hashtags, and heated debates spread like wildfire, turning a single joke into a full-blown cultural moment. Late-night comedy had collided head-on with political outrage, and the stakes were higher than ever. As the dust settled, people began choosing sides. Supporters of free speech rallied behind Kimmel, while Trump's loyal followers criticized him for crossing the line. Meanwhile, MTG doubled down on her accusations, insisting she was the victim of a coordinated attack. It was clear this wasn't just about one joke. It was about the ever-growing divide in American politics and the thin line between humor and offense. As the controversy gained momentum, the media pounced on the story, dissecting every word, tweet, and joke. Late-night talk shows, political commentators, and social media platforms turned the feud into headline news. For Jimmy Kimmel, it was just another day in the world of comedy. He addressed the situation on his show with an exaggerated shrug, turning MTG's complaint into fresh material. "So apparently, I'm the new public enemy #1, he joked. "Forget about inflation, gas prices, or actual crimes. What really matters is that I hurt someone's feelings with a punchline." His audience roared with laughter, but the laughter wasn't shared by everyone watching. On the other side of the equation, Marjorie Taylor Greene used the opportunity to galvanize her base. She doubled down on her claims that Kimmel's joke was an act of leftist aggression disguised as humor. In a series of fiery social media posts and interviews, she accused Hollywood of waging a cultural war against conservatives. "This isn't just about me," she declared during a live interview. "This is about the constant attacks on people like us, on our values, on our way of life, and I won't stand for it." Her supporters echoed her sentiments, flooding social media with hashtags like #StandWithMTG and #HollywoodBias. Trump's involvement only added fuel to the fire. He wasn't content with just a few scathing posts on Truth Social. He made it his mission to keep the controversy alive. During a rally in Texas, he veered off script to address the feud. "Jimmy Kimmel, what a joke, right?" he said, earning loud boos from the crowd. "These late-night hosts, they don't make comedy anymore. All they do is attack good people like Marjorie. Well, I'll tell you what, we're not going to let them get away with it." The crowd erupted into cheers, and Trump's words quickly went viral, spreading across every news outlet. Kimmel, of course, couldn't resist firing back. On his next show, he mockingly responded to Trump's rally speech. "Trump's out here defending MTG like she's the Queen of England," he quipped. "I guess if you're going to fight for someone, it might as well be the person who calls everyone a pedophile on Twitter." Truly the hill to die on. The joke landed with his audience, but it was clear that Kimmel wasn't just entertaining anymore, he was making a point about the absurdity of the situation. Behind the scenes, however, the situation grew more complicated. ABC, the network that aired Kimmel's show, began receiving backlash from conservative viewers. Calls to boycott the network gained traction, with some sponsors expressing concerns over the controversy. On the flip side, Kimmel's fans started trending hashtags like #DefendComedy and Team Jimmy, framing the feud as a fight for free speech. The network was caught in the middle, weighing the risks of supporting their star comedian versus appeasing angry viewers. Meanwhile, MTG's decision to involve the Capitol Police in what many saw as a trivial matter became a flashpoint for criticism. Even some within her own party questioned the move, with one Republican congressman reportedly telling a journalist, "This makes us look ridiculous. We should be talking about policy, not filing police reports over jokes." Despite the criticism, MTG remained steadfast, insisting that she was the victim of a dangerous agenda. "This isn't just a joke," she said during a press conference. "It's a targeted attack designed to incite violence against me." As the feud continued to spiral, the line between politics and entertainment blurred even further. News outlets framed the story as a cultural battle, with one headline reading, "When Comedy Meets Cancel Culture, the Kimmel-MTG Trump Saga." Both sides capitalized on the drama to rally their supporters, but the question remained, was this a legitimate debate about free speech and accountability, or just another distraction from more pressing issues? As the feud raged on, both sides continued to escalate their rhetoric, turning what started as a late-night joke into a full-blown cultural spectacle. For Jimmy Kimmel, the situation had become a strange mix of comedy material and genuine frustration. On his show, he leaned heavily into the absurdity of the whole ordeal. "Let's recap," he said during one of his monologues. "I make a joke. MTG calls the cops. Trump calls me a loser, and now I'm apparently public enemy number one for the entire MAGA universe." The audience laughed, but Kimmel's tone hinted at the deeper issues underlying the drama. "I've roasted presidents, senators, and even my own network, but I've never seen this level of outrage over a joke." Kimmel wasn't wrong. The level of outrage seemed disproportionate to the actual joke he had made. Yet, the controversy tapped into something deeper, a cultural divide that had been growing for years. MTG and her supporters framed the situation as an attack on conservative values, with Kimmel symbolizing what they saw as Hollywood's unchecked liberal bias. On the other side, Kimmel's fans argued that this was about protecting comedy and free speech from politicians who couldn't take a joke. The debate spilled over into social media, where hashtags like "Stand with Jimmy" and "Cancel Jimmy Kimmel" trended simultaneously. Every tweet, clip, and statement became ammunition in a war of words that seemed to have no end. In the midst of this chaos, Marjorie Taylor Greene doubled down on her accusations. During a fiery segment on a conservative news channel, she declared, "This isn't just about me. This is about the left using their platforms to silence us. They want to mock us, belittle us, and incite violence against us." She even went as far as to claim that Kimmel's joke had put her life in danger, citing anonymous threats she had allegedly received since the monologue aired. "This is what happens when the radical left controls the media," she said. "They think they can get away with anything." Meanwhile, Donald Trump, never one to shy away from the spotlight, found a way to make the feud about himself. In a series of posts on Truth Social, he lambasted Kimmel as talentless and washed up, accusing him of being part of a larger conspiracy to undermine conservative voices. "Jimmy Kimmel is a perfect example of what's wrong with Hollywood," he wrote. "They hate America, they hate our values, and they hate anyone who doesn't agree with them." Trump even hinted at legal action, claiming he was consulting with his lawyers about suing Kimmel for defamation. Legal experts were quick to weigh in, with most agreeing that such a lawsuit would be unlikely to succeed. "Satire and parody are protected forms of free speech," one legal analyst explained. "It's hard to imagine any court taking this seriously." Despite the backlash, Kimmel refused to back down. On his show, he mocked Trump's threats, saying, "I've been threatened by tougher people than you, Donnie. Bring it on." The crowd erupted in applause, but behind the scenes, the stakes were growing higher. ABC executives were reportedly concerned about the long-term impact of the controversy. While Kimmel's ratings had spiked during the feud, the network was facing increasing pressure from conservative viewers and advertisers. "It's a delicate balancing act," one insider said. "On the one hand, we want to support Jimmy. On the other hand, we can't ignore the potential fallout." The situation took another unexpected turn when other late-night hosts began weighing in. Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver all dedicated segments to the feud, each taking Kimmel's side. If politicians can't handle a joke, they probably shouldn't be in politics, Colbert quipped during his monologue. Meyers added, "This is what happens when you mix fragile egos with Twitter accounts." Oliver, true to form, delivered a scathing takedown of both MTG and Trump, calling their outrage the most predictable overreaction of the year. The collective support from the comedy world turned the feud into something bigger, a battle over the role of humor in holding power to account. As the feud gained international attention, journalists and commentators began exploring its broader implications. Was this really about a joke, or was it a symptom of something deeper? One op-ed in a major newspaper argued, "This isn't just about free speech or comedy. It's about the growing inability of Americans to tolerate criticism, especially when it comes from the other side of the political spectrum." Another article framed the feud as a distraction from more pressing issues. While politicians argue about jokes, real problems like healthcare, education, and climate change go unaddressed, the author wrote. It's a sad reflection of where we are as a country. Back in Alhambra, where Kimmel filmed his show, the comedian tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. But even he couldn't ignore the impact of the feud. His team had to increase security after receiving a surge of threatening messages, and he found himself spending more time on addressing the controversy than focusing on his usual comedic material. "It's exhausting," he admitted during an interview. "I'm a comedian, not a politician. I didn't sign up for this." Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., MTG continued to use the controversy to her advantage. She launched a fundraising campaign centered around the feud, selling t-shirts and mugs with slogans like "Comedy isn't a free pass" and "Stand with MTG." Her supporters rallied behind her, framing her as a victim of liberal elites. But even within her own party, not everyone was on board. Several Republican lawmakers privately expressed frustration, with one reportedly saying, "This makes us look petty. We're supposed to be focused on policy, not late-night jokes." As the weeks went on, the feud showed no signs of slowing down. Kimmel continued to incorporate the drama into his monologues, while MTG and Trump kept the outrage alive on their respective platforms. The situation reached a new level of absurdity when a poll revealed that most Americans didn't even know what the original joke was about. "This is what we've come to," one commentator said. "We're fighting about a joke that half the country doesn't even understand." Despite the noise, the feud ultimately raised important questions about the role of comedy in politics. Should comedians have limits when joking about public figures? Should politicians be expected to have thicker skin? And perhaps most importantly, why are we spending so much time arguing about jokes when there are so many bigger issues to address? For now, those questions remain unanswered. But one thing is clear. The Kimmel-MTG-Trump saga has cemented itself as a defining moment in the intersection of comedy and politics. And while the punchlines may fade, the cultural divide it exposed will likely linger for years to come. As the feud escalated, the tension spilled out from television screens and social media posts into real-life events. Across the country, people began to take sides in what had started as a comedic jab, but had now transformed into a cultural debate. In Los Angeles, Kimmel's supporters organized a rally outside the ABC headquarters, holding signs that read, "Comedy is not a crime," and "Stand up for free speech." Meanwhile, in Georgia, MTG's supporters staged their own counter-protests, decrying what they called Hollywood's war on conservatives. The feud had taken on a life of its own, becoming a symbol of the broader cultural divide between progressive urban elites and conservative heartland America. Despite the theatrics on both sides, neither Kimmel nor MTG showed any signs of backing down. For Kimmel, the ordeal was both a challenge and an opportunity. Each night, he found new ways to incorporate the controversy into his monologues, ensuring the story stayed fresh in the minds of his viewers. "You know you've made it as a comedian," he joked during one episode, when filing a police report becomes someone's punchline. But underneath the humor, there was an undercurrent of exhaustion. The constant back and forth was taking a toll, both personally and professionally. MTG, on the other hand, thrived in the chaos. She appeared on countless conservative media outlets, framing herself as the victim of a coordinated attack by the liberal elite. In one particularly fiery interview, she declared, "This isn't just about me. This is about standing up for every American who's been mocked, belittled, and silenced by Hollywood." Her words resonated deeply with her base, many of whom felt similarly alienated by the mainstream media. Donations to her campaign surged, and her social media following grew significantly. For MTG, the feud wasn't just a defense against a joke, it was a platform for amplifying her voice. Meanwhile, Donald Trump continued to add fuel to the fire. His posts on Truth Social became increasingly incendiary, with each one painting Kimmel as a villain in a grand conspiracy against conservatives. "Jimmy Kimmel is a disgrace," he wrote in one post. "He represents everything wrong with Hollywood and the fake news media. They're trying to destroy Marjorie because she speaks the truth." At a rally in Florida, Trump devoted nearly 10 minutes of his speech to the feud, calling it the perfect example of liberal hypocrisy. Back at ABC, network executives were growing uneasy. While the feud had initially boosted ratings, the prolonged controversy was beginning to alienate some viewers and advertisers. Behind closed doors, discussions about whether to intervene became more frequent. "It's a fine line," one executive admitted anonymously. "On the one hand, Jimmy's doing what he does best, making people laugh and calling out absurdity. On the other hand, this isn't just about entertainment anymore. It's about politics, and that's a dangerous game." The pressure on Kimmel wasn't just external. Inside the studio, his team worked tirelessly to manage the fallout. Security was tightened, and every monologue had to be carefully vetted to avoid crossing any legal or ethical lines. For Kimmel, the hardest part wasn't the public scrutiny. It was the knowledge that every word he spoke could have unintended consequences. "It's a balancing act," he told a close friend. "I want to make people laugh, but I also want to make a point. The challenge is doing both without making things worse." At the same time, Kimmel began receiving support from unexpected places. Several comedians and writers, some of whom had previously avoided political topics, spoke out in his defense. "Comedy has always been about pushing boundaries," one comedian tweeted. "If politicians can't handle a joke, they shouldn't be in the public eye." This sentiment resonated with many in the entertainment industry, who saw the feud as a microcosm of the larger battle over free speech in an increasingly polarized world. Despite the mounting tensions, there were moments of levity that reminded everyone why this feud had started in the first place. During one episode of his show, Kimmel shared a parody video featuring himself and MTG as cartoon characters in a mock courtroom drama. "If this is going to be a circus," he quipped, "I might as well be the ringmaster." The segment went viral, earning praise for its humor and creativity. Even some of MTG's supporters admitted it was clever, though they quickly added that it didn't excuse his disrespect. For MTG, however, the feud was no laughing matter. As the weeks went on, she began to frame the controversy as part of a larger narrative about the erosion of American values. "This isn't just about me or Jimmy Kimmel," she said during a town hall meeting. "This is about defending our way of life against a culture that's trying to tear it apart." Her words struck a chord with her audience, many of whom saw the feud as a battle for the soul of the nation. As the public spectacle continued to unfold, it became clear that this wasn't just about Kimmel, MTG, or even Trump. It was about the intersection of comedy, politics, and culture in a deeply divided America. The question on everyone's mind wasn't who would win the feud, but what it said about the state of the country. Could there still be room for humor in a world where every joke was dissected, debated, and politicized? Or had the line between comedy and controversy blurred beyond recognition? As the dust began to settle, the feud between Jimmy Kimmel, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Donald Trump left a lasting impact far beyond its origins. For Kimmel, it was a reminder of the delicate balance comedians must maintain when tackling political figures. While he continued to use humor as a tool to highlight absurdities, the experience underscored the risks involved in navigating a deeply polarized audience. For MTG, the controversy solidified her status as a lightning rod for both criticism and support. She framed herself as a defender of conservative values, using the feud to amplify her platform and deepen her connection with her base. Meanwhile, Trump's involvement ensured the drama remained in the spotlight, blending political outrage with entertainment in a way only he could. His relentless posts and speeches fueled the cultural divide, framing the situation as another example of the media's bias against conservatives. Yet, as the feud dragged on, it became clear that neither side had truly won. Instead, the spectacle served as a mirror reflecting the broader state of American society, one where humor, politics, and outrage had become inextricably linked. In the end, the Kimmel MTG Trump saga wasn't just about a joke. It was a story of clashing perspectives, amplified by a world increasingly defined by social media and cultural tribalism. While the punchlines eventually faded, the underlying questions remained. Where do we draw the line between humor and offense? And how do we navigate a world where every word, every joke, and every reaction can spark a national debate? For now, those questions linger, much like the echo of laughter and outrage that started it all.